Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So here, continuing a series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. And I got a fun video for you today because there's been an update to the Neo Geo CD core, and it is starting to eliminate one of the quote-unquote problems that so many people have with the Neo Geo CD, and that is loading times. It also incorporates the CDZ BIOS as well as the UniBios, so it's a more well-rounded, fully featured version of the Neo Geo CD. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. What you will see here on the intro splash screen after Neo Geo CD, you're going to see Universe BIOS 3.3 by Rizzula. That is a newer feature added to the core, and having a UniBios on any Neo Geo system is 100% something you want. We've had it for the AES and MVS core for the longest time. And taking a look at Xenocrisis here, I did a video on this a few months back on real CDZ hardware, and honestly I cannot tell a single difference between playing this core and playing my original CDZ hardware that I've had for a very long time, and that is an amazing thing. And there is a new benefit as well. There is a CD-ROM speed from 1x to 4x in increments of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now currently some of those changes will cause loading issues with certain games. I am sure that's going to be taken care of in the future, but just be aware that you can't always do it. But you'll see here that we have the BIOS type. It can be UniBios or original. And if we scroll down, you're also going to see that there is the availability to change the CD speed drive. I will show that more in just a moment, but it is an option, and it is so great to have that there. Just remember that if you do have any freezing on loading, just dial it back from 4x to 3x to 2x to 1x until it does load. I'm not sure why it is freezing. My guess would be that it might just be overloading the cache because there is a data transfer rate limit on the CD and the CDZ, so if it exceeds that, there might be some sort of loading issue. But if we move back over to 2x, you're going to see that Xenocrisis here continues to load. It isn't the fastest thing, but you will see the animation on those sprites showing that it is loading. But again, once you get into the game, this is one-to-one identical as far as I can tell to the original Neo Geo CD. And that is absolutely spectacular to have. And if you've never played Xenocrisis, take my word for it. It is an absolute banger of a game. If you like something like Smash TV, you're going to absolutely love this. And you can probably play it from start to finish on the Neo Geo CD core today. That was not done for this capture, but it doesn't seem to be having any issues whatsoever. And that is incredible. But the best part about a core like this is that increased loading speed. Take a look at King of Fighters 99 right here as it loads in. This was one of the hardest games to play on the Neo Geo CD, even though it did have a better soundtrack because it has to load in every single time a character changes out compared to the AES or MVS versions. Now that is going to still happen in the Neo Geo CD core. This does not eliminate loads whatsoever, but if you go over to the 4x mode, once your character dies or you defeat the other character, that loading is going to go much quicker than it would on original hardware, and you will see that just in a moment. And that makes playing these games a lot easier because most people say that the Neo Geo CD is not worth it because of the load times. Now, the great thing on something like MiSTer is we can improve those load times. This is in real time right now, and of course it is loading up a mirror match, so it's going to be slightly quicker, but that was almost instantaneous, and you will see in a moment what it looks like when you load into a different type of match. King defeated King. That was a pretty much foregone conclusion that King was going to win. You'll see the game's now loading in a new character, and this is in real time. I have not sped this up or slowed this down. This is exactly what it's going to be like if you were playing on the Neo Geo CD core with that 4x loading speed, and that was about 7 seconds. That is remarkably better than original hardware and remarkably better than the CDZ, and that is why this new addition to the core is so spectacular. So many people have been upset about the loading speeds of the Neo Geo CD for the longest time, but via FPGA on MiSTer, that is improving. Now, of course, I said it was a little bit glitchy, and some games are not going to load with 4x, so you really need to play around. But as we move over to Real Bout Fatal Fury here, this core sound is spectacular. It is so clean. It is so crisp. It's absolutely perfect. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I'll come back and show you more loading comparisons. just straight up perfect sound because it is digital and it is implemented correctly. But if we take a look at Metal Slug 2 right here, on the left it is loading at the 4x speed, on the right it is 1x. You will see how much fundamentally quicker this loads in. This is in real time and it started at the exact same time. We are already into the Metal Slug 2 title and the loading screen is still going on the right hand side. We will reset this core and do something completely different with it, and the Metal Slug 2 1x on the right is still loading in. Only right now that it finally accomplished that initial load. That is how much faster the 4x loading speed is when it works. And of course, once you get into the game, every time it has to load in an individual level, you are going to get that same speed increase. And that is absolutely one of the best new features of this core. Now, of course, as I said earlier, it's still a work in progress. Not every single game is going to accept that 4x speed, but I'm sure through work, a lot more games are going to be more accepting of it. And that is going to make the Neo Geo CD the preferred way to play some of these games over the AES and MVS versions. Those games that have better soundtracks, that Redbook audio that take too long to load, are going to be much more appealing to people when they get to this core. And once you get into Metal Slug 2, everything looks, sounds, and plays exactly like you would expect it to on the AES or MVS, because it's the exact same game just coming on a compact disc and not a cartridge format. But if we take a look at something like Sengoku here as well, some games on the Neo Geo CD don't really have very long loading times whatsoever, and if you pop them over to a faster loading speed, it's going to feel near to instantaneous. All of those things about the Neo Geo CD just taking too long to load are basically going to be dead once this core's speed change is better implemented. That's not to knock it right now, it is just the first draft, but it is so incredible to see. And if you've never played Sengoku 2 before, you 100% owe it to yourself to check it out. It's an absolute blast of a beat-em-up game. I 100% love it. And like I said earlier, the sound on this core is a 10 out of 10, straight perfect. Go ahead and listen for 35 more seconds. I'll come back and show you some more games. It just sounds great, and if you can hear any issues with it whatsoever, leave me a comment down below because I would be curious, but to me it sounds like perfection. And the great thing about something like MiSTer with that digital audio out, the CD and the CDZ do have really good analog stereo out, but depending on the quality of the cable or what you're putting it into, you might suffer a little bit of audio loss compared to the FPGA core. But moving over to Last Resort, another spectacular shmup on the Neo Geo CD. This has very short loading times, and when you increase the loading speed, again, it's going to feel like a game that's almost instantaneous to play. And that is the biggest takeaway on something like this test. Those loading speed increases take away one of the disadvantages that the Neo Geo CD had. The hardware was made back in the day to reduce the cost because AES cartridges were not cheap, but CDs were much cheaper. The trade-off to that is that it had to load in versus reading off the ROM cartridge. By reducing the CD load times, this is starting to play more like an AES and less like a CD system. Something like Samurai Showdown here, again, it's just playing so well. It's fast, it's fluid, the controls are responsive. It is just one of those games you 100% want to check out, and on MiSTer it is working really, really well. And that's the fun part, is that I know a lot of people have played the AES and MVS, but a lot of people out there have not played the Neo Geo CD. Leave me a comment down below and tell me, do you play one, do you own one, or are you planning on playing it now that this core is getting more mature? Because as far as compatibility is concerned, I don't believe there's a single game that doesn't at least work at this point in time. I don't know that 100% of them have been completed. Something like Samurai Showdown RPG probably definitely has not, but it's one of those things. Like Cross Sword, I have seen this from start to finish, and Andy D helped me with the captures on this video, so big thanks to him. He definitely needs to finish this game if he has not. But it's just so much fun to see this happen in real time and see the updates. There are so many good games on the Neo Geo CD. Twinkle Star Sprites, the CD version is my preferred version. Maybe the Sega Saturn after that. The Dreamcast version is actually kind of inferior if you would believe it or not. But it's another great game to play on the Neo Geo CD core. And of course we have Neo Turf Masters that has an additional level on the CD version that's not available on the AES or MVS cartridge. so that makes the CD version the preferred way to play this game. And again, the loading times are so minimal even with the stock speed, but if you increase it, it's barely like the game loads at all. But apparently Andy D just couldn't hit that shot. But the big takeaway from this is something like King of Fighters 99 that loads constantly and took forever, still loads constantly, but the loading is so much faster, it is like it is barely there, at least in my opinion. But that's the current setup for the Neo Geo CD core on MiSTer. The 1, 2, 3, and 4x speeds are there. CDZ BIOS support in its infancy still works. UniBios works as well. I feel like we're like 95% of the way to a full Neo Geo CD core. Short of that, if you have any questions or comments, I'll leave it down below. But definitely check this core out if you haven't yet. And if you are playing it, tell me what your favorite Neo Geo CD game is. See you next time. Bye-bye.